Many of us believe that freedom is just about breaking out of a cage. But according to the living word, John 8:36, if the Son of our Creator frees us, we are unquestionably free from death, hell, and the grave, freed from condemning sin. However, to be free from anything, the first step is to identify the bondage and why it appears to mock Yahuwah God in our daily lives. With understanding alone, we are freed from the lack of knowledge, as stated in Hosea 4:6. So what are we lacking in knowledge? I'll answer that as believers we shy away at the first mention of Satan. What is the biblical basis for studying Satan? Pause. To be clear, anything we overly extend our time on can impact our spiritual lives for the better or worse. For example, as a pilot studies how to take flight, he also studies the crash, not anticipating his own death, but to navigate through the possibilities of malfunctions and ensure a safe return without casualties. In other words, when studying worldly or academic subjects, we are taught the pros and cons. Usually, the same with the Living Word, Bible, etc. We are made aware of the pros of our Father's promises to us and the cons, Satan. Most of us are aware that demonology is the study of Satan and his satanic structure. Theology, if I'm correct, is the study of Yahuwah, YHWH, Adonai, and Elohim. Lastly, anthropology is the study of man. However, to be well-rounded, there are a few more classes each of us should consider, but this isn't any of those disciplines. We are discussing deliverance. The word deliver occurs approximately 594 times in the scriptures. The word deliverance occurs approximately 179 times. But before we examine the biblical basis for studying the opposer, Satan, let's address the elephant in the room. Most believers shy away from this study because it's believed that such studies are anti-Christ. I agree to a point, because what we muse on can affect our spiritual lives positively or negatively. What we don't know can kill and destroy us. Obadiah 1:17, upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance. In the house of God or among faithful followers, deliverance should take place. When we look at Matthew 6:13, and lead us not into temptation, it tells us that we can become victims of evil forces if we are not completely delivered. Many of us believers fail at what we assume is our heavenly task because we take on kingdom assignments without verifying that the assignment before us is undoubtedly meant for us. What do I mean by that? Yahusha, Jesus, was sent to us. Luke 4:16. He read what the book said about him from the pages of Isaiah during a visit to Nazareth. The Spirit was upon Yahusha while reading his very own assignment to preach deliverance to captives and recover sight to the blind. Yahusha was one sent. Brothers and sisters of the cloth, in whatever office you hold, I have one question. Are you one sent, or did you decide this on your own as one who merely went for vain glory? How do we measure if a person of the cloth is one sent? Judge the Spirit by the Spirit and by their fruits, but that is another video. 2 Timothy 4:18, the Lord shall deliver me from every evil work. Brothers and sisters, the Satan is not to be taken for granted. The first mention of delivery was mentioned in Genesis 45:7, which also states that we are preserved through deliverance. Is there a biblical basis for studying deliverance? My quick answer here is yes. Why? We know that Jesus, Yahusha, was sent with the sole purpose to defeat death, hell, and the grave, and is now seated at the right hand of our Father, the creator of the universe, sun, moon, stars, and all its planets, rocks, and crystals. But before we run to the first set of Google's books at our local library that comes to mind, let's take a minute to examine what qualifies as doctrine, because any set of published pages can be classified as doctrine according whatever publisher get for a price, in my opinion. Here are 3 key points that we can use to sift through to the truth. A. The subject mentioned must be captured in the Old Testament. B. Yahusha, Jesus must have taught the matter during his life here on earth. As we've seen, deliverance was not hidden in the good book, nor was the living word shy from mentioning Satan. Yahusha didn't ignore Satan as many of us do. Yahusha warned us of Satan's pattern, as in Matthew 12:43-45, on deliverance. Brothers and sisters, if we find comfort in temporary peace once delivered from any power of darkness, then we're deceived. When a man's prior state is worse than the last, the prognosis of their condition is progressing. Imagine sitting in your doctor's office and he or she just told you that what you were healed of came back, but this time 7 times more aggressive. What the doctor is saying, that death is knocking. So not only do we need to be delivered from what we fall short of, but we are also responsible for maintaining the quality of that same deliverance daily. Look at it as maintenance of our spiritual health, our walk with God. Why is this necessary? What happened when the house was swept and cleaned? The demons claimed the person as their own and found other demons as they returned to what they described as their home. Just the thought of this should concern us all. With this one, my sisters and brothers, you'll need to pay close attention to Luke 8:26-36. We are met with a man in Gadara who was possessed by devils. Notice how the demons testify of Yahusha, Jesus, as they plead with him to send them into the pigs. They introduce themselves as legion, which points out intellect. Then they proceed to negotiate where they desire to be sent. That is the strategy. Have you noticed these demons did not want to leave the territory, which is a dominion? I know that was a lot, but stay with me here. Another observation, my sisters and brothers, these demons negotiated housing an entire herd of swine, which preferred death over possession and jumped to end it all. Now ask yourself this. If demons are disembodied spirits, what bodies of flesh did they enter in the waters? Yes, we are on the subject of deliverance. Keep that thought with you. More importantly, I want us to focus on the man from Gadara, whose choice is to stay at Yahusha's side, and in doing so, his mind was restored. Complete deliverance was the change story of a once homeless madman's life. Question: what is hidden in each of us that hinders our own experience of a closer walk with Yahuwah God? What is that thing that prevents us from facing those spirits of negative patterns in our families' lives and others near and dear to us? In Luke 9:37-40, a man whose son was possessed by demonic entities, but Yahusha's own disciples couldn't cast out demons. Yahusha addressed the matter by what seems to be a rebuke, calling them faithless and perverse. Further into the scripture, it tells how our Yahusha in Luke 9:42-43 rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the child. Another question that may have been asked, could it be that many illnesses and deformities are actually demons manifesting their presence within a vessel? As you've already concluded, for C, Yahusha, Jesus ministered. Luke 8:1-3, certain women Yahusha healed of evil spirits and infirmities, including Mary of Magdalene, who had 7 spirits, because of their true encounters, not staged or coached, supported the ministry of Yahusha. Dear men and women of God, the Most High, if you're sincere in serving without manipulation, and the lives of your congregation have been changed by the Most High God through you, and according to his will and not for profit, those who have experienced true deliverance will flock to you with unspeakable gratitude. Most of us are given beings where long-awaited answered praise are addressed by the Ruah. We know how to defend ourselves when evil spirits manifest as unruly, disruptive, or perverse. On the other hand, what happens when the evil spirit presents itself as our family member's friend, loving husband or wife? Yahusha teaches that we are to put aside personal agendas, wants, and desires to follow him in Matthew 16:21. Peter desired that Yahusha live forever in harmony with him and the other disciples, but thank be to the Most High God, Yahusha remained true to his assignment out of love and rebuked Satan, then warned Peter, calling him an offense to the will of his Father, Abba. In every relationship, business venture, home purchase, family planning, we should pause to ask ourselves, are we in the will of God? How was it that Peter, the rock, found himself overtaken by an evil spirit? Didn't he feel himself slipping into enemy lines spiritually? This tells us that even born-again believers can fall victim to Satan and may need deliverance to get back on track with the kingdom assignment. Yahusha sent out his well-trained disciples, who later became apostles. He healed the sick, raised the dead, and cast out devils. Evil spirits do not take vacations. They are disembodied spirits roaming this earth seeking to destroy. So what are we doing, church? What is the point of preaching wealth and abundance to rebellious teens? That is like granting a mentally unstable person a jet to travel. It's pointless and damaging to the people around them, in my opinion. Instead, let's get back to deliverance and witness the transformation of territories. Now let's look at the damsel possessed with the spirit of divination, soothsaying, reading familiar spirits, Acts 16:16. According to scripture, she followed Paul and his company, speaking truth that they are men of God, but something that the carnal man could not detect. But Paul discerned the spirit of divination, which through this women brought profits to the people of her town. She went as far as to witness that Paul and Silas were servants of the Most High God, that they were there to show the way of salvation. Paul did not perceive this as an opportunity for his congregation. He saw it for what it actually was, a hidden threat to Yahuwah's agenda. There are side effects to casting out demons if you're not well trained. Here, I'm paraphrasing Acts 16:19, where the masters lost their gains and turned on Paul and Silas, because the woman who was no longer possessed her supernatural abilities to again finance. Here we see that we must be careful of who is following us, who applauds us, and who stands by us. Shortly after the woman received her deliverance, the townspeople were no longer gaining capital. As a result, they conspired to have Paul and Silas thrown in jail. This tells us when we are right with God, Satan will move men around. He will move systems and structures to oppress us, hold us captive, and deplete our finances. He will cause our very loved ones to turn against us. But the good news about Paul and Silas' situation was that they were very well trained, and at midnight they prayed. We must seek the Most High for ourselves so that we know our God for ourselves, for our own sakes, for the sake of those who are around us, our families, our friends, our neighbors, our communities, and all who are connected to us. We should keep in mind that men of God are still men, so we must keep watch, saints. Always pay attention to the fruits of a church, because anyone can open a church for profit. Satan himself is a businessman, but he's not interested in our money or our businesses. What he bargains for is our souls, and in winning souls, the payoff is an automatic territory, dominion, family members, friends, and everyone connected to us. I pray that as we are being set free, that the Most High lifts us. In 1 Peter 5:8, it says to be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. Let's bring our attention to the roaring lion. His first goal is to bring down their target, corner, oppress, frustrate, and separate them from a group church, an environment, or our family members who protect them, because there is strength in numbers. The second assignment of the roaring lion is to go for the throat, the vocal cords, to permanently silence, then finally devour their prey. The other side of that coin is when the lion, because he is so driven by his fleshly desire, makes fatal mistakes in approaching an elephant. For example, that same elephant will lift the lion effortlessly, tossing it as though it were a rag doll, bringing the lion to its sudden death without a blink of an eye. Fear not, because our Abba Father is with us during every trial and trouble. So don't turn your back on him, chasing after lies, the bag, a mate, or getting pregnant, and so on. In Revelation 12:9-10, there was a war that took place in heaven. Today, the war between good and evil continues. We see it revealed in family, finances, and the workplace. No war is unusual when the accuser of the brethren is present. In Revelation 12:9-10, the great dragon was cast out, That old serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceived the whole world. Question: what is deceiving us today? He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. As it continues, a loud voice is heard now. It's come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, who accused them before God. Who accused you today? Your mother, father, sister, son, daughter, friend, niece, or was it your marital partner? If you are innocent, it was Satan. From the study of the Old Testament, the life of Jesus and the early church, it is not error or antichrist. Study Satan. Now we are faced with the question of who is Satan and where did he come from? But before we start with that question, let's ask why, which takes us over to 2 Corinthians 2:11. It reads, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." So here we've already answered the question why, according to 2 Corinthians 2:11, is so we're not ignorant of his devices. Ignorance gives Satan an advantage over us. Most religions that we know mention a good side and an evil, identified by several names. 3 major religions came from Abraham: Judaism, Islam from Ishmael, and the faith practice. In most religions, Satan has never been reported to be a friend. Now let's look at Jesus, who calls Satan the thief according to John 10:10, who comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Satan is called the devil, a generic meaning he's the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that walketh in the children of disobedience. Satan is also called the adversary. Satan is also called Lucifer, whose Hebrew meaning is the shining one, the light bearer. In Revelation 12:7, Satan was also called the dragon. The Living Word also stated that his followers were kicked out of heaven, which is an indication that he's very organized. What does Satan look like? According to Ezekiel 28:15-19, we see that he was perfect in all his ways. He was beautiful. But what caused Satan to succumb to vainglory and pride? Or should we say that the very grace of beauty is what caused Satan to fall? Isaiah 14:12-17 gives us a brief explanation of Lucifer's fall. Satan was called a murderer before the fall of man, which suggests an ancient narrative. Colossians 1:16 reminds us that by him, Elohim, were all things created that are in heaven. Satan, or son of the morning star, or Lucifer, was indeed a creation of the Most High God. John 1:3, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Our next question here is, when and why did Satan come up with the idea of creating a parallel kingdom to the Most High God? Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Genesis 1:2, up in the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Here is our thought. The earth was already created from the beginning. It had no form. Though it had no form, God still moved about the waters. Moving forward, Genesis 1:26, God said, "Let us make man in our image after our likeness." Over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every cattle, and over all the earth, and every other creeping thing that creeped upon the earth. God is not the God of chaos. He's the God of strategy. So the making of man started as a conversation, the making of a blueprint within the first chapter of Genesis. As we read further down to Genesis 1:31, if God made everything and it was good, then our question here is, where was Satan? According to Romans 8:29, God foreknew, ordained, and predestined us. Unfortunately, at the same time, Satan was the light bearer having access to this information. As we walk with the Holy Spirit, we are granted downloads of information. Now let's pretend that we are at church and the man of the cloth receives information concerning our arriving fortune. But instead of pulling us aside to counsel against the wolf who will prey on us, they become the manipulating thief to gain more than the Most High graced him to receive. It is that same act of greed, manipulation, and jealousy that brought judgment upon Satan. Before things manifest on earth, it happened in the heavens. So what does Satan really want? I'll tell you what he doesn't want. He doesn't want our health, business, family, wealth, or status. Satan only uses those things to gain souls, territories, and dominion for generations. This is what birthed the concept of witchcraft altars and negative patterns. Satan is obsessed with transgenerational allegiance. Matthew 4:8-9. Satan wants us to bow and worship him, but there are consequences. God gives us freedom of choice that is ours to keep. However, every choice has its rewards or consequences. There are engagement rules. Psalms 8:1-2 revealed to us that there was nothing left that was put under man's feet. Satan wants the ranking of man. We are seated above thrones. To gain access, Satan generates systems to make sure there is transgenerational allegiance. Strategies put in place to build a system of desperation or hunger, negative parents, barrenness, loneliness, confusion, strife between family members, and so on, only to offer us a flawed system that will temporarily bail us out. But do not be fooled. Satan has one requirement, and that's vow. But the question here is, what is the price? There are engagement rules. The price is souls, transgenerationally. Satan wants us to give up, and in doing so, what happens to our families, territories, and anything that we worked hard for? What happens to the people connected to us? What if Yahusha had given up? The only reply to that is that we can't afford to. May our Father strengthen us now, because we are at war, my sisters and brothers, war. Thank you. I hope that you've been blessed now. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.